Grant and I have been road tripping from Cali to Arizona. Why? One is 60 degrees and one's 100 degrees. We passed by the Colorado River. We stopped across the border because gas is $1.50 a gallon cheaper. Come on, California. Politicians, get your act together. We need to rise up and we need to get cheaper gas. But that is not about this devotional. I am in the backyard of my mom and my dad. My dad's gone to see Jesus. My mom is in memory care. We've got to sell the house in order to care for my mom's needs. But I got to tell you, it reminds me of the great grace of God. Mom was taken from Springfield, Illinois, where she was a product of abuse, and God rescued her. God brought her here and gave her a man who was gentle with her and loved her the whole of his life. By Dad's account, he was a sinful man, Fresno and brawly. And God forgave him of his sin. In fact, he stumbled into a Billy Graham crusade and gave his life over to Jesus. And then he moved from Fresno here over to Tucson. And he met a guy named Tex, his wife Vera. They discipled him in Jesus. And Dad, he loved Jesus. Every time he sang Amazing Grace, he cried. My mom and Dad invested in me to know Jesus because there was a God who rescues, redeems, and saves. There's a story in Luke chapter 7, starts about verse 27, but it's not until verse 47 that Jesus is going to ask a question of a Pharisee. And he's going to ask the question, who loves the one who forgives a debt most? The one who has a little debt or the one who has a big debt? Mom and Dad knew they had a big debt. Dad especially knew what his life was like in the sinfulness of who he had been. A heroin addict, in and out of prisons, multiple women. Mom knew what her life was like with an abusive stepdad. And they sat down with me and they said, Danny, that doesn't have to be your life. You can know the life of one who comes as a second-generation Christian because God redeemed us out of so much and he saved us. Do you know that's what the woman was doing in Luke chapter 7? She was anointing Jesus' feet. She was crying. She was letting down her hair. The Pharisee thought if only Jesus knew who was touching him. Jesus knew exactly who was touching him. Jesus saves sinners. He pardons us. He forgives us. He redeems us. You know where my dad is right now? He's with Jesus. You know where my mom's gonna be when Jesus calls her home? With him. Do you know what Jesus does? He forgives, no matter how great the sin. He forgives the sinner. And you know what the sinner is supposed to do when he or she is forgiven? They're supposed to love Jesus much. This backyard, this house, it represents that. God gave them this house, and this is where Dad built his wall. This is where he loved his wife. This is where his wife loved him until the day God said, that's enough. May God give you a life that when you see Jesus and you wrap him in your arms and you give him the biggest hug that you could ever imagine, it's because you love him so much, because you know what he saved you from. Jesus is called the Redeemer because he saves his people from their sins.